Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. And we are live. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us on Coaching Call. I am super excited to talk to Jeff Cohen. Jeff, my gosh, you are the coach's coach, a business coach who helps not only businesses, but other coaches elevate, come to a new level, a better understanding of what business should be like, and also the pitfalls, right? So, Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I am great. I just want to thank everybody and say it's great to be here. Bright and early is the best way to start every day, and we are. It's 7 a.m. right now, so there you go.
Perfect. When we think about business, we didn't come up thinking of business when we were children, right? Even though we may have seen business while we were growing up. What would you say was your first look into business? How old were you? Were you 5? Were you 7? Were you 12? What was your first experience with a business, even transaction, if you will?
That's really a great question because, I've got a book that I just published, and right. A lot of those stories are in the book. But, I think the one thing a lot of people don't always realize and think about is that they have experiences at very early ages that shape their whole life. For me, I know I did a lemonade stand and, we washed cars and all that stuff. But the very first engagement I had that was business oriented was when I was 8 years old. And it was really pretty cool, actually. I wrote all of the professional sports teams and I asked them to send me stickers. Now, I figured I'd get 1 or 2, maybe 3. No, I got a stack from every single team. So awesome. The stack was so big, like I can't even show you how big it was on the screen.
Wow.
It was enormous. And, I invited my mom to come into my bedroom and I said, Mom, that's the wall. I want to put all these stickers on that wall. And she said, no, you won't. And so so having gotten shot down on that, I didn't even go to, well, how about the car? So instead what I did was I put them on my notebook and I went to school. And before I knew it, my friends were wanting to buy them from me. And I made $50 and my dad turns to me and goes, Jeff, you are an entrepreneur. And I said, wow.
At 8 years old.
Yeah. And I had no idea, right? And when I said to him, what's that? He's like, well, he explained to me, like, your uncles have their own business. I was, doing my thing. Like, this is creating your life to be what it is you want it to be.
Wow.
I said, I want that. Who doesn't want to be able to have the life they want instead of the one someone else wants for them? So I've been on that path ever since, and it's been really, it's been Mr. Toad's wild ride. There's been ups, there have been downs. I will say in it, there have been way more downs, but the ups have been so great. It's like, you want that so you can have it to pass on to the world.
Wow. When we think about an 8-year-old being exposed to the fact that of a word they don't even know what it means, right? Entrepreneur. Forget about trying to spelling it at that age. But here's the other thing, right? The fact that your dad came out to you and not only said, but in your family, there are people who are entrepreneurs, people who own their own businesses, who make a difference. In reality, how many kids, even nowadays, are exposed to the fact of you don't have to work for someone else? You can make it on your own. You can make something happen. One of the things that if you take a look at an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old on YouTube who's making $8 million a year,
Crazy, right?
just doing openings of things, and people are sending them stuff. It's like, my kids didn't do that. Why? Right? Did you
Right?
and I do that? Did we know? Well, obviously, when we were little kids, there was no YouTube, probably no internet either. We're that old, right? But here's the thing. How can we, as adults, encourage children to understand, yes, schooling is important, but the most important thing is what you do with what's up here, right? How do we go to school and take the lessons seriously so that we can make them work for us? It's not just about, I need to learn my ABCs or, my math or my science, but how can we think, how will these lessons benefit us as children? And how can we help our children get to that? And I love the fact that you said your first business was those stickers, but you also said that you did lemonade stands. Weren't those businesses too?
Well, that's just it, right? And I think that's kind of the thing that a kid will do on their corner, and
Right.
their neighbors will come over and buy a cup of the lemonade. I probably was selling it for a nickel at the time. Today,
Right.
it's probably $1.
Yeah.
But it absolutely is. And it's an opportunity, I think, for all of us to create an environment for children that gives them the ability to grow into something special. And I just want to do a little shout out here for a friend of mine, Paul Roberts. He's a guy I actually grew up with, and his father would drive us to Temple for Sunday school every Sunday when we were like 12 and 13 years old. He and we've reconnected. We're great friends again. And he works with an organization called Collab Youth here in the LA area to do just what you're talking about, to bring the opportunity for what's possible in the future to underserved youth. And what an enormous, enormous win that is when children get to be in an environment that's opening opportunities in their mind. Because let's face it, you and I have a life we've lived. We have the experiences we have. Right. And when we open those experiences up for other people, then now they vicariously get that. However, there are a lot of kids that don't have the opportunity, or their parents are working and doing everything they can, and they're loving, caring parents. And what happens in their world is their microcosm of the world. And it's often just because there's not the opportunity showing up for them to get. You can be an entrepreneur, you can be an actor, you can be anything you want to be. What does it actually take to have that happen? And that's the unique and really fun thing about what I get to do. Oh, yeah. I get to help create that environment for the leaders I work with to bring home to their kids. And not only do they bring it home to their kids, but they bring it back to work for the people that work for them. And guess what? Those people get to bring it home for their kids. Nice. Right?
Yeah.
It's just the opportunity to hand off the goodness in the world. I'm growing a little vegetable garden. My wife and I have a 14-month-old foster to adopt daughter.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we go out there every day and we water the garden and we're watching these little tomatoes start popping up, right? Now, she doesn't know. She's 14 months old.
Right.
But 6 or 8 or 7 months ago, when she came to us and had an environment that had her not be cared for the way that would have made the difference,
right,
would not have opened her up to the possibility of, being able to do things like turn over and stand up, and she's about to start walking.
Wow.
Where in our world do we get to create that for people?
Nowhere. It's an incredible thing that you and your wife are doing, but not only to take a child and show them the possibilities that there really are in the world. Because if you guys did not adopt this child, right, what would her life be like? We don't know.
Well, here's what I can tell you.
Yes, I want to know.
Her life is on a different trajectory today.
Absolutely.
Than it was when we started. And her biological mom is probably going to get her back in another 6 months or something, because the way the court system works, that's often the way it goes. And it will definitely impact my heart and my wife's heart, because we love this little girl to no ends. But we know that, first off, this mom really got something special by being able to engage with us. And this little girl loves music and loves, dancing and, like the things you get from a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
It's I have 2 adult grown sons.
Right.
I've got a little granddaughter, right? They play together. It's fun to watch.
That's
but
cool.
The thing about it is that I never thought I'd be doing this again at my age. And what's really cool is I was watching Jeffrey Gitomer. He and I have had dinner a couple times. He's an amazing guy.
Right.
But I remember the first time I met him at an IBM conference, and he was telling me about his daughter, who was 3 at that time. The guy was my age. I'm like, oh, geez, I could do this again. My wife was actually with me at that conference, and she's like, wow, that's a possibility. This is my second wife. She's never been a mom. Like, we could do that.
Wow.
And we are. And I just really, if I can be the space for people to get, it's not a drag to change a poopy diaper.
Right.
It actually helps you create a level of connection that does not exist otherwise. I mean, you actually have a child being vulnerable to you when you're changing their diaper, right? That actually, that creates just such love.
It does. It does. When you think about grandparents, right? This is their second chance of giving the love, right? And one of the things that I talk to grandparents a lot, and they're like, yeah, that's why I spoil them, because guess what? They go home to mom and dad. but the love that, because sometimes so many grandparents were so busy working that they were not there for their own children. And so now maybe they're retired, or maybe, things have calmed down for them, and now they can give more time. And so sometimes even their own kids are like, my gosh, my mom or my dad didn't spend so much time with me as much as they're doing with my child. But sometimes it's the understanding of where we were in that time, right? Because if we were busy getting food on the table, we had to be away from our children in order to do that. So there's that shift that we have to do as business owners, business entrepreneurs, or anyone who's in business, is that we have to find the time now to spend with our family, because later on it's getting less and less, right? The older we get, the less time we get to spend with them. So as a business person, as someone who you teach people how to be more effective with their business. How is that balance important?
So there is no balance.
There never was.
You have clearly read my book. There is no balance. The reality is that as an entrepreneur, a CEO, a business owner, you are putting everything into your business. What's missing is you're not creating leaders and leadership in your business for others to model and create leaders and leadership in your business.
Right.
And the balance I missed early in my life with my two sons that now I have a great relationship with, but it really went from me focusing solely on my business and pushing everyone in my family away, to the disaster of me filing bankruptcy, to my divorce, to like all of that. Like it really sucked. And so, the thing is, Rafael, there's no 50-50 on anything in life.
No.
You're all in or you're not in.
Right.
And that goes with your relationship in your marriage. That goes with your children. That goes with your business. That goes with all your associates in your team. You're either 100% there when you're there or not.
Yeah.
And by the way, that also goes for them. Like, you've often heard like a marriage is 50-50. That's baloney.
Yeah.
If I only put half of my commitment into my marriage, where's the other half going to go?
Right.
What about my spouse? How am I going to feel when I get half of her commitment?
Right.
That's not what I want. I want to be fully committed. Now, I want to create the environment where that commitment can carry over.
Yeah.
So when there's other activities in my life, I know the bases are covered. One of the main things that you're going to learn in Count Honorable is creating leaders and leadership. There is a reason the subtitle is Lift, Shift, and Empower You and your team.
Right. I put your website up so people can come find your book. Is that how we can find your book?
You can find a link to the Amazon site right there for whatever country you are in the world. It's available globally everywhere.
Nice.
And thank you for that. And there's a lot. First off, if you go there, the very first thing you're going to get the opportunity to do is you can get the very first chapter downloadable, and it's called Grand Theft Auto.
Nice.
It's about a time I stole a car.
Get out. Really?
Yeah, really.
Wow.
And I have my longest trigger in my person that I've developed from that. And I've carried it with me into every relationship, every job, every manager, every friend. And when you trigger me, there's an impact. It's very simple impact. I'm going to waste a half hour of your time. I'm just totally I'm going to tell you why I didn't do it. I'm going to get defensive. My protect mechanism is going to pop up.
Right.
And I've just wasted your time. Now, in a business, remember I told you it's 100% in or not?
Right.
Well, the 100% is that you're either going to listen to that or you're going to find a way to skillfully interrupt that.
Yeah.
Without making someone bad and wrong, so that you can get what it is you were looking for. Or you're going to do that 5 or 6 times a week to all the people that report to you. You're going to waste 2 or 3 hours a week by doing that. And you're going to leave them less than whole. They are going to be left with, I did something wrong. How did I mess up? And they're going to be thinking about it for the next several days. And what that's going to look like is they're just not going to know how they stand with you. Right. And they might be thinking, do I need to find another job? Do I need to do something different? Do I need to apologize? Well, what do I need to do? So, in the book, I actually share with you a method that creates alignment in your team. So what does that mean, alignment? Rafael, what it means to be aligned is that you as the leader, you've set some goals and objectives. You have some milestones. And in this 90-day period, you have a plan, and they know the plan, right?
Right.
And they trust. Like there's alignment and there's trust.
Right.
But trust is always falling apart. People, whether they trust you or not, are always looking for, is he doing what he said he'd do? Can I count on that? Oh, there's a chink in the armor. He said he was going to do X and he did Y.
Right.
It happens all the time.
Yeah,
So
it does.
So I created this framework called the Trust Alignment Framework. It explains all of the components that are needed to have alignment in your company. What is alignment? Alignment is you have 6 direct reports that work for you, and instead of them being in sports cars and one is driving to San Diego, another one's driving to Phoenix, and you've got 2 others that are going to the Bay Area, it's just one's going to San Francisco, the other one's going to Oakland. Like, come on, get them all on the same bus, going the same place,
right,
at the same speed, because it doesn't do anybody any good. If I get to Chicago 3 days before you do, and I'm dependent on you,
now we have a problem.
I got to wait 3 days. I'll just I'll be there twiddling my thumbs. That's better than if you're going to Phoenix instead of Chicago, but still not fulfilling on what it is you're committed to.
Right.
So
that's not in alignment with one another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
let me get back. Let me get back to you stealing a car. I think that's. So here's the thing, right? You have skills for you to have stolen a car. So if I'm ever stranded, I need you as my wingman.
let me just tell you something.
You got some skills, kid.
It's not what you think.
I'm aware.
And just go download the chapter or buy the book. I think it's still up there on Amazon Kindle for 99 cents. I think today is the last day. But
I'm going to ask you a bigger favor. I'm going to ask you to send me a signed copy. I'll pay for it.
Oh, no. I am going to send you a signed copy.
Perfect.
That's my thank you.
Okay.
And for anybody else that's out there and listening today,
right,
please go do it. I'm playing a game to have 100 reviews, and we're up to, I think, 28.
29 now. 29.
Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And if you got a couple of words you can say to post, I think of the 28, almost all of those have posted something that they got from the book.
Nice.
So please, help other people to get the value. When we launched the book last week, we very quickly became #1.
Wow.
So Count Honorable is a #1 bestseller in multiple categories on Amazon. But the one that lights me up the most is that we actually took #3 ahead of the Entrepreneur Operating System by Gino Wickman, ahead of Traction.
Wow.
And ahead of Andy Grove, the CEO of Intel. We were 3, Traction was 4, and Intel CEO Andy Grove was #5. And it was just really heartwarming to me because, first off, I highly respect them.
Absolutely.
They are amazing men. Gino created a system that was needed. Over 100,000 businesses are using it today.
Right.
And I love that system. Mine is a derivative of that, but it's the opposite side of the coin.
Right.
So what Gino created was a system where accountability was at the heart. I mean, if you listen to chapter 9 of Traction, it's all about accountability and how to get your people to be accountable. And the way it occurred to me is, you could take it on like it's a badge of honor.
Right.
And I recommend you do. The thing about it is most employees don't take accountability on like it's a badge of honor. They treat it like it's a pariah.
Oh, wow.
Accountability to most people has no upside. If you just think about it for a minute, on the news every night, they talk about accountability. What do they say? They say someone's going to jail. They're being held accountable. They say we're going after a politician. We have to hold them accountable. Well, if that's your relatedness to the word accountability, that's got to be very constraining.
Right.
There's a lot of force that happens when you say to someone, Rafael, you're accountable. And then it's now up to you to manage that. What most managers do is they wait a month, then they pick up the phone at 4:00 on Friday afternoon and they say, is it done yet? Is it done yet? I'm on the phone with another customer. Can I call you? No, I need to know. Is it done yet? Like, you totally take these people out and you wonder why they leave. So I created a system. It's really just a path, right? If you follow the path and you go from step to step to step, what you get is very, very simple and straightforward. You get, first off, to know that your team is aligned. How do you know it? Well, one of the key components is effective communication. And since most of us have our own definition of that, and it's rarely exactly the same, I would say it's possible, not guaranteed, but possible. There's some ineffective communication happening in the world. And I'd like to share just a short story with you and everybody about ineffective communication.
Before you do that, and I want to commend you on the fact that you talked about your book, but you never said I. Not I was number one on Amazon. You said we. And a lot of people forget that part because, yes, you wrote the book, right? But when you think about everything in your book is based on everything you've learned maybe from other people, right?
There's a word on the cover right here. Team.
That's it. That's it. So I love the fact that you said we, and a lot of authors are going to say me, I, but I love the fact that you're true all the way through, so that speaks volumes, so, and we have Michael Woods L, who also says that, effective communicator, that's everything, right? So thank you for that comment, Michael. When we think about everything that we are talking about, it's how we do what we do, when we do it, and how often we do what we say we're going to do, right?
And it's managing that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that gets missed is management. And I'll go to that in a minute if you like. But
sure.
I want to just...
I want to hear that story.
I want to give you the story, but you brought something up I just can't step over.
Of course.
People deserve acknowledgement. And I want to acknowledge a couple of people. First off, I didn't write my book alone.
Okay.
I had a book writing coach. His name is Kellen Flukinger. Kellen edited my book as well. Kellen is an amazing author. He's written 17 books, a number of #1 Amazon bestsellers, and a book on how to write books. And when my friend Remy Moraz, who's a former client and has a really successful coaching business herself for the BIPOC community, when she introduced me, I got this thing that I had bouncing around in my head. I could actually get it out in a book.
Right.
When I talked with him and I joined his cohort, and there were 3 people that were writing books plus me in the cohort. And I didn't write it alone.
Right.
And I didn't, one of the reasons I think, not for sure, but I think a lot of authors say I, is because they go on the journey alone. They spend years writing.
Right.
And it's not empowering. Like the stories they tell are like, it was so hard.
Right.
Well, when I met Kellen last August and I got it was possible, and I looked at his method and I said, every chapter's 3 or 4 pages. I can do that. His promise was in 90 days, I would have my first draft. I had the first draft in 60 days.
Wow.
In 90 days, I'd gone through all of my author edits, and I had him begin editing the book.
Wow. That's awesome.
In 90 days, I had Joy Flukinger, his wife, but also an incredible marketing genius for book marketers and social media. She's my social media team today, and all of her people are doing an amazing job. If you look at my social media, all the stuff we want is up there every day, and the engagement is off the charts. It's amazing. It's growing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And like those, they're 2 people that are part of my team. And I've got Chris Tremmel with Launch Your Life's Work. Like, he's taking my book and my programs, and we're exploding those to the world right now. So just know, like, you can do it alone. I know you have. And I'm talking to anybody that has. Congratulations. It's a real feat. I just don't want to. It's no fun. And if it's not fun, I think that's chapter 53. Why do it?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So the story I was going to tell, it's about effective communication. And I picked a lot of this up while I was writing the book. So, and these lessons I'm going to share are in my life, and I use them in my work. But I think they're really powerful in life, because every time I ever went through a program to better myself, I always went because I wanted something for my work. And so when I started applying it to my life, oh my gosh. Well, so there I was in San Diego a couple of months ago. I knew my daughter had just turned 1, and we were at the home of some close friends we were staying at. And they have a 7-year-old daughter. My wife and her girlfriend went to an event that night. So it was the guys and the kids. We put them in a wagon, and the 7-year-old was mommying the 1-year-old, the cutest thing. We walked to dinner. I'm in the back watching the whole time. Everything's great. After dinner, we leave. I'm in the front. We're walking to frozen yogurt. We're about to pull up. I turn my head, and my daughter is standing up in the moving wagon with tears coming down her face. She's scared to sit. At that point, she wasn't comfortable sitting, and it was scary. It was a moving wagon.
Right.
So I had my friend stop, and I picked her up and I comforted her. And she calmed down. I put her back in the wagon, and I turned to the 7-year-old and I said, "Hey, honey, I'm just curious. Did you notice that she was crying?" And she said, "Yeah, I told you." And I said, "Wow." I said, "Hey, can I ask you a favor?" She goes, "Sure." If that happens again and you call for me, can you make sure that I answer you back?
That's strong. You have to. You didn't realize it. Yeah.
Well, I'm not done. The best part is coming. So she looked at me and she said, "Got it." And then she went right back to her video game. Now, I don't know about you, but I hear the word "got it" multiple times a day. And I don't know when people actually get it. So I said to her, "Hey, honey, I'm curious. What'd you get?" And she was looking at her computer game on the phone, and she stopped moving her fingers. And I watched her for 15 seconds. It seemed like an eternity. My friend was super with me at the time. He didn't say a word. He just let it happen. And then she lifted her head up and she looked at me and she said, "You want me to make sure I hear you answer me if something happens." Rafael, my heart just melted. I knew at that moment she actually got it.
She did get it.
You want to know the best part?
Tell me.
2 months later, we went back to San Diego and we were staying with them again. And she took my daughter to go play with her friends, just a few feet away from us. But
Right.
before she did, I said to her, hey, do you remember that thing I asked you to do when we were together last time? And she said, yeah, you want me to make sure I hear you answer me if something happens and I say something to you.
Mm.
And like, I couldn't have asked for a better present.
Oh, yeah.
I knew my daughter was in great hands with a 7-year-old.
Mm.
What would it be like if you treated your employees the way I treated that 7-year-old? With respect,
Yep.
with trust. Wow. Sorry, that was just a lightning bolt that hit like 5 feet from my house.
You know why, right? You know why it hit?
Yeah, that was my dad saying from the grave.
Trust.
Wow. Yeah, I could see. I mean, seriously, that was really close. But just imagine for a minute that you treated your people with respect and you were vulnerable with them.
Right.
And you told on yourself. Like the environment you create of trust and alignment, it's unlike anything that you can have anywhere in your life. And, that also goes for, relationships with your spouse and relationships with your other team members on your team and your vendors.
Yeah.
Like, what if you just created the opportunity for them to share back what they heard so you can know? And in the book, I actually give you the steps and the words that you can use. Because a lot of us are stuck in this space where something doesn't get done. We get annoyed. We treat people with that emotion. And now they're looking for another job. Or they're saying, screw you, I'm going to go work for someone else if it's a vendor. You become their last priority.
Well, I was just looking behind me, and I think I have it in my bag because I'm always taking books. I have several books in my library behind me that I constantly always revolve, right? I'm always rereading them. And
Yeah.
one of them is, EQ 2.0, because you're talking about emotional intelligence and
Yes.
the way we treat people. Oh my gosh. It's the difference between someone who was thrown into a leadership position and someone who desired it. But there's a difference and I think that anyone who is thrown into a leadership position, sometimes they're not even taught how to be a leader, right? And that can be harmful to the other employees because all of a sudden it's an ego shift or power shift. And when we think about leadership, it should come from the heart, because we may all be trying to accomplish one thing or another. But as a leader, you also have to be aware of other people's situations, right? What their livelihood is like, what they went through, maybe why is it they're always on time, but for the last 2 days they've been late? And instead of yelling at them, just, what's going on? Tommy, what's going on? How come you're late? Or is there something I can help you with? So
There's
you're talking about what a true leader is.
Well, there's a couple things in what you said, right, Rafael? For example, First off, it's like, how often do we come at things from being curious?
Right.
Like, you could just simply say to someone, hey, I'm just curious, blah. Can you share with me, blah?
Right.
Whatever it is, right? And oftentimes we get so wrapped up in what we're doing and what's important to us we forget to create the environment where curiosity is great.
Yeah.
You know, I in the Countdownable program, I have a bunch of assets. By the way, they're all downloadable from the website, and you can do this program yourself just reading the book.
Nice.
But one of the assets is the priority action list, the PAL. Why is it your PAL? Well, because these are the priority actions that align to the milestones you have this quarter. And they're priorities, guys. These are the important things you want to get accomplished.
Right.
By the way, you may not be doing them all. They might be something that other people are taking on. You might be calling it delegation. I usually kind of see it as relegation. Like people give it to someone and forget about it until sometime in the future. But you want to delegate with a powerful context, right? You want people to take an ownership of that. You don't want to just leave it and forget about it.
Right.
That's where, like all these companies that say we trust our employees,
you can't.
They're dropping the ball.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I love this, right? So even the simplest routines, right? You can have somebody say, I need the bathrooms cleaned, right? Let's say you're running a small shop or a big shop or whatever. And something as simple as I need the bathrooms cleaned. If there's no idea of why we're having the bathrooms cleaned, right? So you expect them to do a good job. And then later on you go in the bathroom and you go like, oh my God, who cleaned this thing? This is a mess over here. There's a mess over there. And then all of a sudden, maybe you delegated that to someone else and you said, hey, you know, Tommy, I need one of your guys to clean the bathrooms, right? And then Tommy goes, right on it. Gotcha. And then Tommy tells Adam, and Adam goes and cleans the bathrooms, but Tommy never checked in to see if he did a good job. So then all of a sudden, you go in the bathroom and it's a mess. And then you don't go back to Adam, you go back to Tommy and say, hey, Tommy, did you check to see if Adam did a good job in the bathroom? And he's like, why? He didn't do a good job? I'm like, well, I just checked and he did not. Can I ask you why? And
oh my God,
no, I didn't know. Well, let me tell you one thing. I said, we as leaders cannot expect them to do a good job unless we teach them how to do a good job. Did you know that he can clean the bathrooms or not? Well, I had no idea. Oh, okay. So there's that delegation you're talking about, right? We're not even taking responsibility for what we're asking people to do. So,
that's the whole thing about accountability.
right.
We give
give
accountability to people. We say you're accountable to clean the bathroom.
Right.
And let me tell you, there's a couple of things that are going to resonate with people about this.
Well, here, before you do that, right?
Finish your story.
Yeah. So my whole concept there is when we delegate, right? Who was at fault? Was it the person delegating initially, the person who was the middle person, or the person who actually cleaned the bathroom? I don't blame the person who cleaned the bathroom. They did the best they could. Maybe they never cleaned the bathroom before and they said, well, I think this is how it's done. Or is it the person who was the middle person who delegated because he was delegated to? So where is the blame? I think the blame is truly in the coachability of even a simple task, right? So to me, before we can ask someone, can you go handle this, right? Do you know how to handle this? Or have you done this before? If not, let me help you, right?
Yeah, so that's perfect. It's a great layup for this.
Right.
So first off, there is no delegation worth doing. There is no blame to make.
Right.
If you want to impact trust in your company, you will blame people, whether it's the manager or the leader or the doer. How about coming at it from a whole different perspective?
Right.
By the way, there's a reason why people love the word countable. It's because when you get there, your people are saying, you can count on me for this and for this, but you can't count on me to clean the bathroom.
Right.
What happens is when we hire people and we know they're perfect for the job we're hiring them for, then we realize, we don't have anyone cleaning the bathroom. So we say, hey, by the way, can you also clean the bathroom for us? Now, the minute you do that, you've just taken your A employee and the A job they are well suited for together.
Right.
And you've made him a B employee or her a B employee.
Right.
Because they're going to begin disappointing you from day one.
Oh, yeah.
And then, Rafael, just like you said, we are going to ask them to do things, and we have no idea if these are strengths of theirs, if they like doing them, and if they're good at them.
Right.
And what if they're not, right? How do we know? That priority action list I was telling you about a minute ago helps create a database, by the way, which we're in beta test with right now, that will show you what tasks and roles your people are best suited for. Because that's often what's missing. You assign something to somebody, they say, I'm going to do it, and then suddenly they miss the opportunity to actually fulfill on it, and you're not managing that. Well, in the book, I've got a very, very simple and straightforward meeting schedule. And I don't know if you remember, back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan was president, and he went ahead and he said something that is monumental today, which is, Mikhail Gorbachev, we are going to trust you're going to remove those nuclear weapons. And then we're going to send teams of people in to verify. So we often trust. What's missing is verify. So I created these very easy, simple verify meetings that people can have, and a simple step-by-step path to what those meetings look like, so that you can just know, is something getting completed? Is it not? If it's not, maybe it's not appropriate for that person. And instead of waiting 3 or 4 weeks, you can reassign it today, and your company performance will expand exponentially. And that, I think, is among the most valuable tools you'll get in the book that you can just freely use.
So what you're really telling me is we need to get your book. But, here's the thing, and I agree with you. And the fact that your book has all this information, not only information, but guides, if you will, that someone can actually pick up your book, start reading it, and start doing. So you are coaching while you're sleeping. You're coaching while you're driving. You're just a coach. You're a business coach, obviously. So why and how did you get into not only taking care of you, but you decided that it was time to help other people? Why become a coach?
You know what? That's often a question I get asked at the start of an interview. And I just love the way we've had this conversation, Rafael. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here with me.
So here's the thing. I have been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I told you some of the stories early on in my life. But I started a software company in the early 2000s, and I had a great partner, and we grew it from nothing to 50 people. We were making money hand over fist and spending it hand over fist, right?
Yeah.
And 2007 came, and every one of our accounts were companies like Wells Fargo and Bank of America and Kaiser Permanente in the state of California. Like, they were all Fortune 500, Global 2000 companies. and they all got impacted by the market crash.
Mm.
And they all came to us and they said, Jeff, we love you guys. You're amazing. You're fired.
Wow.
And I had this controlled crash of my business, and it killed me. I became very depressed.
Mm.
I pushed my entire family away. I would sit in front of Star Trek for 8 hours a day, just to escape.
Wow.
And it wasn't healthy.
So can you do this? You can do this now?
I can do this now.
Okay, there you go.
And
it was worth it somewhat, right? I'm just kidding. But
no,
wow, what a devastating blow. So how on earth did you come out of that?
Well, it took something, right? And it took a lot of years, actually. And I didn't actually recognize like my mental health was impacted to the degree that it was. And I couldn't hear people say, Jeff, you should talk to somebody. Like I just didn't have that. And so instead what I did was I pushed away my wife. I pushed away my 2 sons.
Wow.
I crawled up into a ball, and like getting out of that was really, really hard. But I had this one friend that just would not let go.
That's nice.
And he came over to the house one day. And the one thing I did have going that my kids and my ex-wife enjoyed was I was making these granola bars. And my friend said, hey, can I take some of these to work? So I gave him a bunch of bars. He took them to work. And the very next day he calls me up and he says, hey, Jeff, can you come down here? I'm like, why? He goes, well, they want to buy them from you. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll come. So I get to the Warner Brothers lot, and before I knew it, I was selling energy bars to 20 TV shows and movies.
Wow.
And then my sister, who was in the real estate business at the time, joined me. And without Nancy, like that company would have been just selling at farmers markets and to the TV shows, right? But she got us into Whole Foods. She found the audition on Shark Tank for me. I got on that. Like the business expanded. It's just there was no money in it. But I'll tell you what, it was the energy bar that saved my life because I was actually getting accolades. People loved it, except for Damon John. Damon hated them. But
and what did Mr. Wonderful say to you?
Oh, he hated me even worse. He said, Jeff, you went bankrupt. You'll never get a bank. You're radioactive to me.
Wow.
I'm telling, but here's the great thing. Robert Herjavec, who I respect immensely, he stood up for me. He says, you know, you can't say that to this guy. He said, the measure of a man is not how many times you fail. It's how many times you get back up.
That's right.
And then he said he was out also. But we were the very first show they ever did a success story on. The very first show, and we got no funding from them. We had an order from Safeway for all of their stores, and they came and filmed the production, and it was just awesome.
So they were kicking themselves, right? After.
Yeah. Well, whether they were or not didn't matter. What was is the show had a great underdog story. But what really got me to where I am today, to answer your question, is I took a program called the Team Management Leadership Program in 2013 to 2015. And the very first thing that I did was I inspected myself. And I noticed a couple of really important things. Number one, I was a lousy leader. I didn't treat people the way I wanted to be treated. I wasn't respectful. I was cocky. And I'm sorry for a lot of what occurred back then, because like a lot of people did not deserve what they got. And I feel, you know, like I'm sorry.
Right. That's
but
all
I will tell you,
because you did it. It happened, right?
Right. I will tell you this. Once I noticed that, I got 50 CEOs and entrepreneurs together, and we started looking at what's not working in businesses today. And we came across that one thing. Really, it's only one thing, guys. Like there's a lot of other things that you're going to say are part of this one thing.
Right.
But when you really look at the root cause of what doesn't work in your business today, it's your definition of effective communication.
Right.
It's not the same as the people you manage. And stop managing people. They don't want to be managed.
Nobody does.
Manage promises.
Mm.
That's the priority action list, or all the promises. You can manage those without a charge,
Right.
without getting emotional. You can just manage, hey, where are we at? Instead
right.
of trying to herd cats, because you'll never herd them because they do not want to be herded. They'll
Not
move on to the next company first. So, yeah, I know we're coming to the end over here, but I just want to say that's really been my journey. And from the 50 companies, I've implemented my program with 300 CEOs and business executives, and really, really refined it and fine-tuned it to the point where I could get to write this book and have it actually work.
Mm.
And it's a different, there's nothing new in the book. It's just when you order things the way I do, and you take a perspective that there's really nothing wrong here. Mm-hmm. Accountability is dead in the workplace. So what's the other option? Be countable.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when we think about being accountable, right? Saying what you're going to do and then doing it. To me, that's priceless, right? Even showing up on time, right? So it's funny because this morning I read a little post on LinkedIn about somebody who started working at Walmart, and the guy had great work ethic. Well, he was always 5, 10, 15 minutes late. And instead of the manager bawling him out, he actually spoke to him. And he said, let me ask you, when you were at your previous job, how did people handle someone being late? Okay. Then they talked a little bit. And he goes, I know you were in the military. How did they handle it in the military? He goes, well, I apologize that I'm late. I'm working on it. He goes, thank you. And then he goes, well, how did they handle it in the military? He goes, well, usually when I came in a little late, they would say to me, Corporal, can we get you a cup of coffee? So it depends on the person and the objective, because the guy had a great work ethic. He just had a little bit of an issue getting there on time. But when he was there, he was extraordinary at what he did. So do we nitpick at the little things? I mean, don't get me wrong. If the guy had to be on time because the bus was leaving, yeah, he would have missed the bus. So, right. But it was not as important. And the manager obviously had great emotional intelligence to be able to depict the fact that we value you. I just want to get to know why. And the guy apologized, but when
it's not about that though. What I hear in your story is there's a habit that got created.
Right.
And there's a manager acknowledging it's a habit. Right. Like, what would it actually take to shift that habit so that it was an on-time habit, or better yet, 5 minutes early habit?
Yeah.
Just a habit, right? Are you waking up 20 minutes too late? Right? Are you always rushing in your life to do things?
Right.
But you're great. You're absolutely right. The emotional intelligence of that manager to do that was incredibly effective, and just about, again, having a respectful but straight conversation with somebody. And that's often missing. We get frustrated and we have these conversations where we're powerful beings, and that's unnecessary.
Right.
Make them powerful. Have them be empowered.
Oh, yeah. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for today. I know you have something else going on, and I want to thank you for the time that you took out to join me and my guests and to deliver such great content and stories. When we think about a business coach, what's the one question that we want to ask if we're looking for a business coach? And then I know you have to go.
How do I want to be coached?
And be coachable, right?
Well, if you're not going to be coachable, you won't be able to answer that question.
Right.
Right? It's how do I want to be coached?
Yeah.
And, obviously, yes, if you're thinking you want a business coach and you can't answer that question, then search like deep within to find the answer. And that will drive you to the right coach, the right complement. And do you want coaching or do you want advising? A lot of business coaches are advisors. They're actually not coaching. They tell you this is what to do. I'm very straight with my clients. I will provide coaching. And I don't make people sit around twiddling their thumbs, grasping at straws for answers when I see there's a blind spot they just don't see.
Right.
And I have the experience. I will do advising. But that's a lot different than my partner, Carol, who will she's masterful at getting people to where they're coachable and can get themselves to the next level. And that's more like life coaching.
Right. So how does somebody find you? Is it through your website, the one that I put up, for them to reach out to you and maybe have an exploratory call with you to find out if you're the right coach for them?
Yeah, there's a link. You can book a 15-minute conversation with me right on the counthonorable.com website.
Awesome.
I would love to meet you, and I would love to hear what's happening in your world and why you think that it might be interesting to engage in a 90-day focused program and what that could do for you. And the other thing is that I have tremendous content on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Like, we're all over the place. And I do, like you're doing, I do some live interviews with people for 20 to 30 minutes. Now we're launching the book, so I have a series of those happening.
Nice.
And you're invited to look at the recordings or join us. We're doing one later today. And Rafael, I would love to invite you to be on one of those with me so I could be the one asking the questions.
It would be my honor. Anytime.
Because I love where you're coming from in this.
Thank you.
And, I just would like to leave everybody with one thing.
Yes,
actually,
please.
2 things. First off, a picture of me in the book.
There
you go. And one statement that I think can make an extraordinary difference for you and your family and your team. Stop being just accountable. Be countable.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, my friend. It was an honor, and I look forward to our connection.
Thank you so much.
Continued
Absolutely.
connection. All right. Enjoy.